Good morning. Welcome to the Crusher Trading Recap Show for I'm sorry. Welcome to the Crusher Trading Recap Show for Monday. This is the recap show for Monday, the 10th of March, but today is March 11th. Okay, let me do that again. So, what we had yesterday is we had a great trade on NVDA. Now, we play the Crush It Trading strategy in the Crush It Trading room, and this was by far one of the best trades of the day with a clean setup, and we'll talk about this here. I also talk about the fact that, we had a bearish day. There was a lot of great momentum to the downside, so really, whatever you were playing to the downside yesterday, you probably would have had a good chance of winning your trades. And we'll talk about a few other opportunities that we had on Tesla, Amazon, and whatnot. But let's start with NVIDIA here right now. So you can see NVIDIA, we move up at the open, we get into the crush it zone here. Now, we don't really have a continuation, a 5-minute break, the ORB here on the 1, but we do get a nice crush it zone trade. We're outside the Bollinger Bands, a full candle on the 5. And let me move this over to the 10-second now. And you can see these recaps don't take long because it's a pretty simple A+ trade. And if you know the strategy, this is really all you need to do. Let's see here. Okay, so I'm going to pull the candles out so you can see what this looks like. And there it is. And the reason why I pull the candles out is because you really only need to pay attention to the moving averages, and you're waiting for the 9 to cross the 20 right here, the 20 SMA. You do get an EMA cross right here, so that's giving you kind of that indication. This is where you take your starter trade. This is our starter trade. This is our add position. I'm going to turn the candles back on for just a second here, because a lot of times what you get is you get a retest of the 50 SMA for the continuation of the downside. Now, this is the 10-second chart. And here it is. Here's your break. Here's your retest. Sometimes you don't get the retest. Sometimes you do. I would say most of the time you get this retest. Sometimes it's a little retest. Sometimes it's a bigger retest. But generally speaking, you'll get the retest, and then sometimes you don't. So you have to be a little bit, you have to figure that out a little bit, whether or not you're gonna add in here if you start to channel and keep moving down, or if you're gonna wait for that retest. I think this was a good retest spot because it had to bounce off the VWAP here. For that continuation of the downside. So anyways, so that is where your entries are. So coming over to the 1 minute, once you're in the 10-second, your entries are in. You no longer need to look at the 10-second, nor should you. Okay. I'm going to back up just a little bit here and talk about this. Now, anytime you see the crush it zones, what you can usually expect most of the time is you're going to see this head and shoulders pattern right into the crush it zone. It's pretty notorious. You'll see it a lot of the times. A nice head and shoulder pattern right at the crush it zone. So if you see this formation here, you can expect to move down to the 0 line, and you get that shoulder, so you can get a add position. So if you have a bigger account, you can add your position here at the 360 for that continuation of the downside. Now, you don't know how far it's going to go down, but just pay attention to these head and shoulder patterns at the crush it zone. All right. So now your scales right here, you have a scale at 0.618. You have another scale down here at the VWAP, or the 0.382, and then you have another scale down here at the 0 line. You could either add your position at the top of the wick zone and then take it to the downside, or you could have just hung onto your trailers and waited for a little bit here. Now, I got to be honest, I did not have the best trade management on this yesterday. I'm in a small account. I took 4 contracts, and I trimmed just a little bit early. And I got to admit, I got a little bit emotional because I was thinking the market was going to kind of fake me out here and move to the upside, which it did the total opposite and had a nice, cool move to the downside. All right, so that is NVIDIA. That was our trade of the day. Really good trade. Now, if you're interested in trading the Crush It Trading strategy, check out the links below. This is an awesome strategy. We keep track of the data on this, and we get 70-80% win rates on the Crush It zone. And if you want to get into the room, we'll teach you how to manage through these. It's actually a get up and go strategy. It does not take a huge amount of effort, but you do have to learn it, all right? So the next trade I want to get into is Tesla. I thought Tesla was a great trade, break of the 5-minute ORB. And we'll talk about this one here quick. And let me just get the wick zone put in here. What time is it? All right. So here's our wick zone. We'll apply this to the other charts. Had my coffee this morning, so I'm full of energy. And here it is. It's pretty basic. It's pretty simple. We have our Fibonacci levels in, and we get that break of the 5-minute ORB. Here's our retest candle right there. There it is. Now, the continuations, I don't always use the 10-second. I don't need to. There's a couple things you can think about here. Is you got a move. Sometimes you can wait for the 20 EMA retest, which we don't get. But here's a nice retest right here, that wick zone at 950, and we start channeling continuation to the downside right here. Okay. If you look at the 10-second, you should see some channeling. I gotta find out where this is now. It's 248. I'm way off here on this one. Let's go. All right, guys. I usually have these set up. All right, here's our wick zone here. And, of course, I don't have the Bollinger Bands in here now. All right. Yeah, you don't really get any good channeling on the 10-second, to tell you the truth. So, yeah, that was just a straight retest off of the 5-minute ORB for a move to the downside. I was expecting to see a little bit of channeling in here, but boy, we don't really get any on the 10-second, which means it was pretty choppy. So, So that didn't work out the way I was expecting to show you. But anyways, you do get this nice move, 5-minute ORB to the downside. You get down to the crush it zone. Where are you scaling out on this, you guys? You got to scale on the 1 minute. You're going to get a scale at your 0.618. I tell you, I've been waiting now lately to, like on this particular one, the 0.786. If I'm going the other direction, it's the 0.382. But now I'm somewhat eliminating, I'm not eliminating, but I'm trying to hold past the 0.618 on the continuations. I want to kind of hold the 0.786, and then on the crusher zone trades, I'm trying to hold till we get to the 0.382. But this one here, this would be a scale point generally at the 0.618. You have another scale at the crusher zone, because generally at the crusher zone, we're looking for some kind of reaction. Okay, so here's your scales. You get down to small size here, then you hang on your trailers, and then if you get back above the 50 SMA, then we know we have a stop out right here. We don't get above VWAP, but it does continue to the downside. So really good move there on Tesla. Okay, Apple, right out of the bat, it was a move to the downside. And I didn't really even get a retest on this one here. I know some people took this to the downside. They did very, very well on it. But like I said, we don't really have much of a retest. We're just trading below VWAP. We're outside the Bollinger Bands. We got a lot of momentum to the downside, and Apple gave it up. We did have this nice window here from, oops, let me get the price in here. Oh, brother. There we go. So we had a nice move. We had a nice window that was about $5. It was a $5 window right there on Apple. So really good move to the downside. Like I said, there really wasn't any kind of retest, any kind of indication here that we should have gotten into the trade to the downside other than the momentum. And that was Apple. Sorry about that. So we got AMD. AMD, big move to the upside right at the open. And let's see if we have some kind of retest at the ORB here. And what we'll do is we'll look at the blue line, the zero line here, and you see we don't really get anything on there. It just kind of goes, which is good, because what I like about it is we got to the crush it zone and we had QQs, the QQQs pulled back. The Qs pulled back at a key level. I don't remember what that level was. But if you're at the crush it zone here, we would have had that nice move to the downside. This was a trade we got into NVDA. NVDA was in that crush it zone, and we had that nice move to the downside. So you want to try to use QQQs to follow the trade. And if you're counter trending, you still get the reactions at the crush it zone, which we'll talk about right here on AMD. You can see that we were counter trending here. Let me apply this one here. Application, there it is. So we get down to the crush it zone here, right? We get a move, but we get a smaller move because we are counter trending. Okay, so yes, the crush it zone does work even in the opposite trend market, but you got to be quicker. You got to recognize that. right? HI, human intelligence. You need to understand what the overall trend is, and this is where you got to trim a little bit quicker. Okay, we'll talk about this on Meta too and what happened there. But if we go over to our, here it is right here, same thing. I'm not going to remove the candles. You got to get used to looking at this with the candles. Here we do. We have the, here we go. We have the 9 crossing the 20 right there. There's your entry. Here's your retest. I told you, always these retests, sometimes they're big, sometimes they're little, but there's your retest. And now you start scaling out right here. Okay. And that's your small scalp trade there on AMD, counter trending the crush it zone. Microsoft, don't think we really had much in Microsoft. We blew through the crush zone. One of the things I liked about Microsoft is I had this daily level marked out at 368.24. When the Q started to drop at this point too, you had Microsoft needing to catch up. So we had a nice clean move off of the daily level here to the downside. Just look at the moving averages. Look at how clean. They got this rat's nest right here. Starts cleaning up. You have the 50 EMA crossing the 50 SMA here on the 1, and that gives us everything we need to know for a nice move to the downside. Okay, you could have taken the retest at the 0 line for that move, but this is a really nice move here. If this was your main focus of the day, you could have gotten in on this trade. So Amazon, let's go back to Microsoft and let's see, just for an overall retirement account, I'm really waiting for Microsoft to get down into this zone. So I think I got a nice add zone here on Microsoft for the retirement account long term. And if we do get there, there might be an opportunity for a day trade. Amazon, we blew through the crush it zone. So here's what I like to talk about. How do you know that we don't have a crush it zone trade? Now I'm going to get rid of the candles on this one here. So this is what ups our probability. Now when I'm keeping track of the data, I count this Amazon as a stop out. I count it as a stop out. Okay. We're not really at the price isn't really having clean touches at the crush it zone here, right? So we don't get that crossover the 50 SMA, but nothing, it just kind of everything bounces off the 20s right here. You see that? Now that's not an entry. You got to get a clean move across the 20s and then a clean move across the 50s. And here it is right here. You can see right here how your 9 crossing the 20 right here, and then you cross the 50. We'll expect a little bit of a bounce back right here. Let's see if we can see it on the candles. Let's see where that is. Okay, here's your move above the 50. Takes a little bit longer in this one, but here's your retest. And then you get that move to the upside. Very choppy, you guys, very choppy. And, you know, this isn't necessarily a crush zone trade. This is more or less just showing the moving averages. This came off of the previous day low, I think that was. What was that? Let's see what that was. That was a previous day low. So that was a previous day low that it was coming into range on. I would have never taken that trade anyways. I just wanted to show you what the moving averages look like, what you take at the crush zone. But you can see here, we don't really have any clean touches on this crush zone. You got this, but it breaks below the crush zone. It gets very choppy in here, and we know not to take this trade, okay? You've seen plenty of these at the crush zone where you know where to enter, and it's nice and clean, okay? There's NVDA. See if we got a clean one to show you again. Here it is. You got your clean move. There's not a lot of chop in there. Nice and clean. Okay, and you got this ascending head and shoulders in here too. All right, Meta. Looks like I didn't get this one set up. So Meta had a nice continuation of the downside. This is where I kind of flubbed up yesterday. And let me get this set up real quick here and I'll show you. I had the wick zone marked out here. Well, looks like I was doing some back testing on Meta yesterday and didn't get it set up. Here we go. So what I'll do is I'll just apply these crush it zones over so we can see what those look like. I'll apply those. Now, Meta I want to talk about because I think, you know, it was kind of a little bit ambiguous. Maybe you wanted to get into the trade. Maybe you tried. Maybe you didn't because it was a little choppy. But here you go. We break the 5-minute ORB. You don't get much of a retest, but there is somewhat of retest. And I did try to get in this yesterday at this 20 EMA touch right here for a move to the downside. Okay. I wanted the break of this key level I have on Meta at 600. So I wanted to break the 600. And I felt like if we didn't break to 20 EMA here, we're going to get a nice clean break. Now, this was meant to be a scalp trade right here. I was just trying to get this down to the zero line. I didn't know, and I don't think anybody else knew that we were going to have this ginormous move to the downside on all the tickers yesterday. I didn't know that. I don't think anybody knew that. Okay, but this was the move I was looking for. I could have held on to a couple of trailers, but what I did was I accidentally bought calls instead of puts right here on my continuation. So I ended up stopping myself out. I lost a couple $100 on it. Just a silly trade. I need to pay attention, need to be hyper focused, you guys. And so I lost a couple $100, you know, trying to make that trade happen. You know, looking at the crush it zone. Okay, so that's a continuation. You can see we got a nice move to the downside, nice move off of the 20 EMA. But now at the crush it zone, let's move into the 10-second here. Let's see what this is showing us. I'm beta testing these signals, and you can see like they're doing pretty good. They're over 50%, but I'm still collecting data on it. I want to make sure I get enough data to make sure that we, you know, want to know what the average points per move are and whatnot, how many losing trades you get out of them. Like this here, you get a buy signal, but you don't get much out of it. So still trying to figure those ones out. Okay, we are on the 7th here. Let's back this up. Let's get to the 10th. Today is Tuesday. Let's go like this. Fun working your way through the 10-second chart, isn't it? There we go. And I'll clean these charts up here in just a second. So I'm going to show you our possible entry on Meta. The reason why I didn't take Meta on the crush it zone is it looked choppy, and I'm looking at the larger time frame. And in my opinion now, I'm looking at this and I go, okay, so once we break this 200 SMA on the 60, I have this key level right here at 600. I felt like with the markets, once we broke 600, I felt like there was a lot of confluence in here, and I have this low of the day before. I felt like there was a lot of confluence to try to get back above it. So where the crush it zone was, I just didn't feel like it was a good move to the upside, not to mention at this time, QQQ was moving to the downside, and I did not take the trade. I was more like the continuation of the downside after that break of the 200. So that was what I was thinking when I bought the wrong, I bought calls instead of puts. But here it is at the crush it zone. We don't get any super clean touches on them, but you know, you might have gotten into this thinking that we had a good trade right here at the crush it zone. You can see that we kind of blew down below here a little bit. And let me get rid of the candle so you can see this just a little bit better. Okay, so you can see you got a kind of an entry right in here. Here's your starter position right here off the crush it zone. And then you would have gotten stopped out. One of the things that you can look at here also is, you know, you have the 50 EMA is still trading above, and a lot of times you'll see that cross below, right? But this one didn't. It didn't cross below until later on when you would have got yourself stopped out after you got the sell signal, okay? But this is kind of what you want. You want to see this actually on the bottom side crossing over the top side, okay? Like this. This is what you want to see, but you want to see this in closer. Price never does get above the 50 and close. Let me show you where we're at here, and I'm going to turn the candles back on. We're looking for some liftoff. If I can get this turned on here. Okay, so you might have gotten skunked out right here in this candle. Okay, I didn't, like I said, I didn't take it. I didn't like it. It's really choppy in here. Just made for a hard one to trade. I count this one as a stop out of my data, but once again, I didn't take the trade. I tried to take this one to the downside. But that is Meta. You can see sometimes when things get messy, just pass the trade up. You guys have seen enough crush it trade setups that you don't have to take all of these. You can go a day without having any trades. It's better to be flat than red. Okay, so don't take these trades if you don't feel comfy. If they just don't look good, you know what the clean ones look like. So just wait for the clean ones. Wait for the clean ones and size up on them. This is not one to size up. So if you were to take this one, hopefully you would have taken it very small. And, you can see this. Look how choppy this is before it even gets into the crush it zone. Very, very choppy. Okay, that's Meta. We talked about Tesla. That's all I have for the day. My main watches today. Once again, I think we're going to continue with Meta. We're gapping up this morning. So, there's a good chance we could get a pop and drop. We could get a little bit of a pop and fade, or we can get continuation right away. So I'm going to keep that one on watch. I'm going to keep Tesla on watch again today, and we'll see what happens. Let me turn the 1 hour over here. It would look like Tesla for a possible pop and fade also. I don't really have anything to go off of down here, but what I'm going to set up here is the hourly crush it zones, right? So you can see if you put your hourly crush it zones up yesterday, a lot of you are going to find that we're going to get into the crush it zone before we got those reversals yesterday. And so when you get those big moves like you did yesterday, put your crush it zones, put your Fibonacci levels in on the 1 hour, and you'll see where you get those reactions at on the 1 hour on your charts, and it should help you make some better decisions later on in the day if you're trading all day long. So but I'm looking at Meta for same thing, probably this pop and fade type deal. NVDA also don't really have any really good thesis. Yesterday was a really good day for trading. Had a lot of great setups on these tickers that we trade. So being that yesterday was such a big bearish day, that I would expect that today might be a little bit more difficult to trade, maybe not as clean as yesterday, but if we do NVIDIA, I'll be also looking at this key level at 108, 109 for maybe a pop and fade off the 50 SMA on the 100, or if we get above, I'm going to want to see us get above the 50 SMA on NVIDIA if we're going to get some kind of big movement to the upside, but I think that's highly unlikely. We'll see what happens. So with that said, I don't really have a thesis for the day. Just going to hang out and watch NVIDIA, Meta, and Tesla for our crush it trade setups, and that's it. All right, guys, we have the market open in about 20 minutes here, and I'll be back on in just a few.